message. My computer decided to reboot itself about 5 or 6 minutes ago, and I've been sitting here saying, hurry up, hurry up.
Well, we're glad you're here.
It's good to be here. Nice to see everybody, albeit not in person.
That's right. So I have that it is 6. So I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Will you join me in a moment of silence? Okay. So will you join me in a pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before I go forward, I would like to let council and the public know that Lane had to take care of a family emergency that came up this afternoon, so he will not be here this evening at the council meeting. And I just got a call from Mayor Pro Tem Higgins saying that she also is under the weather, and so I would like us to include them in our prayers for quick recovery. Okay, I would like to welcome everyone who has joined us today. We are always happy to have you with us. The city is operating under a state of emergency declaration related to the spread of COVID-19. And in order to remain consistent with limiting physical interactions and the potential spread of COVID-19, city council meetings will be held electronically until further notice. We appreciate your patience as we go through this together. We follow a written agenda, which is available on our website at salisburync.gov/agendas. City council meetings are broadcast on WSRG, our local government TV station, formerly Access 16, which is available on Spectrum Channel 16 and Hotwire Channel 394. Meeting air times are posted on the station's website, WSRGTV.com. You can also watch current and past city meetings on demand from the city's website, salisburync.gov/videos. We're at number 4, adoption of the agenda. I would suggest that we entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Adopt the agenda as presented.
We have a motion from Councilmember Tamara Sheffield. I will do the roll call. Brian Miller.
Aye.
David Post.
Aye.
Tamara.
Aye.
Karen Alexander. Aye. Motion carries. We're now at number 5, Mayor to proclaim the following observances. Hispanic Heritage Month, September 15th through October 15th, 2020. Constitution Week, September 17th through the 23rd, 2020. And Fire Prevention Week, October 4th through 10th, 2020. And I do all of these on Vimeo, so you can access any of these presented on our city website under Vimeo. Number 6, council to consider the Consent agenda. A, adopt minutes of the special meeting of August 31st, 2020. Adopt an ordinance extending the corporate limits of the city of Salisbury to include 22.414 acres, tax map 330, parcel 151, Rowan Woodland Apartments, LLC. And C, adopt an ordinance amending Chapter 13, Article 10 of the City Code relating to no right turns on red for the intersection of West Ennis Street and Church Street. D, approve a right-of-way encroachment by AT&T for the installation of directional board duct on North Main Street near Liberty Street per section 11-24 in parentheses 27 of the City Code and subject to North Carolina Department of Transportation NCDOT concurrence. And E, authorize the city manager to execute a task order to an existing professional services agreement with W.K. Dixon and Company Incorporated for an amount not to exceed $107,920 for engineering services associated with the McCoy Road culvert replacement. And Kelly, do you have the exact amount that is different than what was approved before? Because we're not doing a whole new contract. This is just the new number.
Yes, ma'am. It was an extension of $2,900 to extend the existing contract by $2,900, and the total would make it $107,000.
Okay. Okay. So, with that clarification, do I hear a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented and corrected?
So moved.
We have a motion from Councilmember Brian Miller to adopt the consent agenda as presented and corrected. All those in favor signify by aye, and I'll do the roll call. Brian Miller.
Aye.
David Post.
Aye.
Cameron Sheffield.
Aye.
Karen Alexander. Aye. So the motion to adopt the consent agenda passed unanimously. Number 7, council to receive public comment. Public comment will begin following the adoption of the consent agenda. For electronic meetings, speakers must sign up before 5 p.m. by contacting Kelly Baker at kbake@salisburync.gov or by calling 704-638-5233. Citizens who are unable to speak during the meeting may submit written comments by 5 p.m. to the email above, and they will be shared with council. Kelly, do we have anyone signed up?
No, ma'am. We had no one sign up for public comment tonight.
Okay. So we will move on to...
Madam Mayor, could I just ask, there was something that was sent to us from Clyde. Was that a public comment issue or some other issue? And have we gotten someone in the staff to take care of the request?
Yes, staff was working with him on that request.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I don't know if the email is the appropriate way to get everything started, but I want to make sure we had him taken care of. So good deal. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, we're at number 9. We're at number 8. Council to receive an update on Stormwater Services CIP Master Plan. Our presenter tonight will be Assistant Public Works Director Chris Tester and HDR Engineering Incorporated Project Manager Damian Galski Whites.
Congratulations on that name. You did well.
It was close.
You did well. So thank you, Mayor and Council, for taking the time this evening to receive a update on the current status of the Public Works Department Stormwater CIP development. In January of 2000, 2019, Public Works and the Salisbury Rowan Utilities worked together jointly on an on-call engineering statement of qualifications. Through this process, HDR Engineering of the Carolinas was selected as one of the firms for stormwater projects. An item that the stormwater staff was tasked with was to work on the development of a capital improvement project program for future stormwater projects that would help address some water quality and flooding concerns. In November of 2019, Public Works contracted HDR to perform a CIP study and help develop a plan to address stormwater concerns. This presentation will be an update on the status of that study and the plans to achieve our future goals. Michael and I will stay on after the presentation by HDR to answer any questions that council may have, and I will now turn it over to Damien.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Chris.
So I'm going to share my screen. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
And can everyone see my screen now?
Yes. You might
All right.
speak up just a bit.
What was that?
I said, if you could speak up just a bit.
Sure. Yep. Well, thank you, Chris. I appreciate being given the time to present with you and Michael to council this evening about the work we've been doing. I'm going to give an overview of the efforts that we've undertaken to help develop a stormwater capital improvement program for public works. And historically, we've worked with stormwater at project locations that have already been identified by citizen concerns and some anecdotal flooding information. And our master plan effort is really an effort to help identify new projects to cost effectively help manage stormwater across the city. So first, why is this important? Obviously, recent events have brought to light the impact that rainfall can really have on a community. When we get a lot of rain, there are two main ways that this will impact the public. First being through water pollution, which is when stormwater moves quickly across the ground and washes pollutants into creeks and streams. And then the second is the one that's a bit more optical, is flooding. And that is where a stormwater system, which can consist of pipes, channels, streams, culverts, can't convey the amount of runoff that they receive from the watershed. Here are a few images of flooding events that happened just 2 or 3 weeks ago. So flooding can be caused by a number of factors. The basics are shown on the slide, but essentially flooding occurs when there's too much runoff reaching a pipe or a channel that then that pipe or channel is not properly sized to convey. What does this mean in real life? Some examples could be when development goes in and that development then creates more runoff than what the downstream receiving channel or system was designed to handle. That would create a flooding problem. If a dam failure occurs and you get a large volume of water that then goes downstream and overwhelms the stormwater system, then you'll have another problem. Something that's not as commonly thought about is the condition of stormwater assets. And if a pipe fails, then that pipe can no longer convey water, and everything upstream of that typically will have some type of flooding problem until it finds somewhere to go. And then streams and rivers that kind of overreach their banks and impact the surrounding infrastructure and homes that may be built like in the floodplain is kind of another example of real life flooding problems. So recent events were caused by that last example, flooding within the floodplain. Something that's important to consider when you're thinking about stormwater management is that essentially stormwater management is risk mitigation. It's not feasible to prevent flooding for all events. And when you're designing stormwater assets, you're accepting a level of risk based on what can physically be constructed at a site and what monetarily makes sense for the project. Usually, if there's flood mitigation that needs to happen within a floodplain, it's very costly. So best way to manage floodplains is to prevent development within them. And the recent flooding was caused by the 100-year storm. And what that means is that the 100-year storm is an amount of rainfall that in any given year has only 1% chance of occurring. Doesn't mean it never occurs, but it's just it's a helpful tool in order to statistically manage the risk associated with rainfall. And then here's just to give you an idea of what the floodplains in Salisbury look like. Here's a map showing the municipal boundary in black, and everything in green, excuse me, is the 100-year floodplain. You'll see there's not much floodplain within the downtown area, but in the area surrounding it and more in the residential parts, there's a lot of floodplain that can really impact the community there. So I'm going to move on now to what we're actively doing to plan and manage stormwater within the city. Our best way of finding and defining new projects is by what's shown within citizen calls and concerns throughout the city. And citizens can call Public Works directly or use the 311 portal to report any concerns. Concerns can be anything from flooding that they observe to sinkholes that may identify a condition issue or stream bank erosion. To give you an idea of what this looks like whenever it's called in, the top left is what we identify as a condition issue. This doesn't mean that the pipe is undersized, but what it means is that the pipe is likely to fail, causing a lack of adequacy to convey stormwater without impacting the public. And when a pipe fails, then the system has essentially failed. The top right is an image of some flooding that's probably caused by a capacity issue, maybe in a culvert beneath the roadway. That's what happens when you have a stormwater system that's undersized for the amount of rainfall that gets to that pipe or channel. The bottom left two issues are what I'd classify as maintenance issues. Debris doesn't sound like it should have too much of an impact, but if a inlet is completely clogged or filled with leaves or debris, then it's no longer able to function, and all that water is going to build up on the roadway and cause a problem, or at least could cause a concern for a citizen. And then in the bottom right there, it's an example of a sinkhole that is caused by the condition of the pipe beneath it, or it could be also the capacity. And then something that's not often thought about, but is actually a large contributor to pollution within a watershed, is shown in the bottom right there, and that's stream bank erosion. And whenever you get these large storms within a stream, they're going to wash sediment and the soil that is in that bank and whatever is contained in that soil. And that's kind of where the concern comes from. So we took all of the historically reported citizen concerns and mapped them in a GIS interface. And we created a heat map that identifies the areas where you get the most concerns related to stormwater. And what I did here was I just overlaid the floodplain. So it gives you an idea that the challenges that the city is facing aren't necessarily floodplain related, but a lot of the calls that come in are actually condition or capacity related in the areas that aren't necessarily next to a stream or a creek. So what does the master plan and eventually the capital improvement program look to do? We want to reduce the flooding damage and disruption to the public and improve stormwater management within the city. So I'll wrap up now briefly to review the current master plan process and effort that's going to define the long-term capital improvement program. So this is something that's important to remember, is this is a long-term effort. It's hopefully not going to be a one-time thing that it's not going to cure all the problems at once. So the idea is that we're continually improving stormwater management through assessing the condition and adequacy of the stormwater system, starting now and into the future. The plan will kind of serve as a guideline for future planning efforts so it can be repeated. And the recommendations that we're offering can even help improve water quality throughout the watershed. This is a graphic that we put together to help define what the process of the planning effort looks like. We broke it up into 2 phases. Currently, we're towards the end of phase 1, and the steps that we set out were to first define the goals of the master plan. Our goals that we set up front for phase 1 were to map the entire stormwater system. That will help us understand what the existing condition or what the baseline is for any improvements that would have to go in. And then we wanted to look at the entire system as a whole compared to the concerns and issues that we know about throughout the city. And this can help us identify areas that may require a study or a planning effort that we didn't previously know about before. Step 4 is where we're currently at. That's where we're looking to identify focus areas to focus our phase 2 efforts in an effort to, in the short term, maybe 1 to 3 years, identify capital improvement projects, and then over the long term, make sure that we have a backlog of work that is still being prioritized and not forgotten about. Phase 2, that's where we're really going to dig into the information. Phase 1 was more of a data collection effort, an analysis to identify focus areas, and then in phase 2, we'll look to actually do some modeling efforts to identify what the root cause of problems are, and look to populate the capital improvement program long term. Then these last few slides are a bit more expansive for each step. The one thing I really wanted to discuss here was the type of stormwater focuses that we're looking at. Those include the capacity of the system, which is how much the system can convey, the condition of the system, which is how old pipes are or how likely to fail they are, and the consequences of if they fail. Flood control, which one looks to understand the root cause of flooding and if it's actually controllable or not. And then looking at water quality initiatives long term that can either be, like policy or programmatic items that can help holistically improve water quality in the future. I did kind of talk about phase 2 a little bit before, but phase 2's main effort will be to select focus areas for the near term, prioritize them and evaluate them. And phase 2 will also look to develop a budget for condition assessment that can be applied, not necessarily all in 1 year, but spread out over multiple years. And we'll then look to identify areas that are either most at risk or most consequential should a failure occur. We do plan to do some stormwater modeling that can help identify the root cause of flooding at concern areas throughout the city. And finally, we want to look at all of these assets, all of these reported concerns from the citizens and the focus areas that we define and program them into the capital improvement program to make sure that we're better managing stormwater in the city and that it's being done in a cost-effective way. So we'll look for opportunities to combine projects into one to get some better economies of scale there. We do have tools that lets us look at how many projects can be funded at the current stormwater rate and budget for a defined set of years, and also will let us look at what levels of a rate and budget increase could potentially fund year over year as we define these focus areas. So that's the update I have. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'll give it back to Chris now.
Hey, any questions from council? I do have a question. Are you all, as a engineering firm, using any of the new research opportunities that are going on with the stormwater engineering group at NC State? they're doing a lot of really interesting work in terms of bioretention ponds, doing subsurface gravel wetlands. Is this an opportunity for Salisbury to engage in looking at some opportunities through either grants to get help with those types of potential research projects here? Permeable paving, and there's just a lot of different things that they're working with, even the metrics that are used in engineering firms to calculate the size of pipes and so forth.
Damien, would you like to follow up? You want me to?
Yep. Yeah, we actually have some projects with we didn't design them with them, but we've worked with NC State on a few projects, mostly relating to water quality, like you're asking about, kind of the bioretention cells. Mm-hmm. We've done some regenerative stormwater conveyance systems that are going to be monitored by NC State as part of their stormwater program.
Right.
The water quality initiatives part of the master plan is really the opportunity to look at what's called, stormwater control measures and green infrastructure to help improve water quality in the city before it even gets to, your creeks and your streams.
Right. So that'll be a part of the study. That's excellent. I'm very happy to hear that.
Good.
Thank you. Any other questions from council?
Did you or have you been able to get to a point where you've identified what the largest need is relative to our infrastructure system that needs to be on our radar?
We've identified multiple areas, and a lot of them were somewhat known. The great part about doing this research with HDR is it identified some areas that they weren't on our radar. For example, to be quite honest, Wellington Hills was not something that was a radar because there hadn't been calls in that area before. That hitting a 100-year flood event basically put that on a higher level of the list. So yes, it has identified certain areas. Some were known and some were not, but we haven't really got to the point of defining, which will be part of phase 2, defining which ones are the ones we want to pursue first, because it's going to be kind of a combination of grabbing some low-hanging fruit that we can get quickly, as well as planning long-term for some things that are going to require some building of fund balance and that kind of thing to budget for.
Yeah. The Wellington Hills issue, was that 4 inches of rain in 1 hour, or was that a pipe that had failed?
To be quite honest with you, I don't know. I can't tell you the exact amount of rain, but the issue was definitely.
It was a lot, is what I meant to say. I'm sorry.
Yes, it was definitely the rain. The Rowan County Emergency Services has identified, according to Wendy Brindle, the email that I got from her today, that did exceed a 100-year flood event. And when you say a 100-year flood, you have to be careful with that, because a lot of people think that's the chance of getting. You'll have one in 100 years. That's not actually what that means. That means this year you have 1 year of 100. So basically 1 over 100% chance of getting, or that's your chance of getting it, is 1 over 100. So it doesn't necessarily mean, we could have another one next year, but the odds are very slim on that. But yeah, it did exceed that flood, and that was based off the early analysis that they've done on it, the engineering department and Rowan County Emergency Services. That's what the determination was that the event exceeded that. And just to emphasize on that too, stormwater design does not design for 100-year floods.
Right.
Your road culverts are not designed for 100.
Well, but if it was a blocked pipe, that'd be something you'd know at this point. Absolutely. Right. Yeah. I'm just trying to find out if it was a failure or if it was just a lot of rain.
There didn't appear to be any type of failures. It tended to be the intensity solely.
I would imagine other hot spots on your list would be the creek there at Newsom Road on Inner Street. Is that the right word? That's not the right. Arlington, not Newsom. Arlington, right there near the interstate.
Yeah, Town Creek.
Town Creek, yeah. That has a habit of flooding whenever we have these kind of rain events. I'm assuming that's one of the ones that's on your radar that was a known issue.
Yeah, so there's multiple ones on there that are known issues. And as Damien was stating, a lot of those are in floodplains, and there is no elimination of flooding. I just want to be upfront with that. As an engineer, I will never ever state that we can eliminate flooding. We're not going to eliminate flooding in flood zones. What we're trying to do is relax these areas and try to help where we can. But to say you're going to eliminate it would be impossible. And Town Creek and that area happens just to be a low-lying area, and that will continue. But if we can develop some storage upstream or something like that, maybe a certain event, we can keep it from happening as regularly. So that's what our intent is to try to develop some quantity control in different areas that will help. It won't eliminate, but it'll help maybe make the time in between those floods be a little bit longer.
Chris, will any of the recommendations be integrated in our land development ordinance where we're actually requiring new development to not be in floodplains, or things like doing underground cisterns? I know that some of that has already been done, impervious or pervious paving. I think one of the projects is actually the Olive Garden that has that kind of system. Will we be encouraging that in our LDO as part of this, where it's integrated in with new development, because that would then put less pressure on the existing system?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the floodplain, those regulations are kind of already set, and we follow those. Those are North Carolina floodplain regulations, and that's handled through our engineering department. And those are kind of already set in the floodplain as far as how far where you can build, where you can't build, how high a building has to be in the floodplain, that kind of thing. Now, as far as the quantity control, absolutely. That's one of the items that we're looking into to add to our development ordinance. Currently, right now, we have a quality, which, stormwater quality, it's basically required through the state and through our stormwater permit to treat water to basically remove pollutants from it. But we currently are looking into adding a quantity aspect to the development ordinance that would, and we're looking at municipalities in and around us and what they do, and just the initial thought would be basically if we can get to the point where we can take and make pre-development or post-development flows equal to what the pre-development flows. So if you took a site that was all woods and you developed it completely out, what you would want is some kind of device on that site that would hold the water for a time frame and release it back out as it was when it was still woods. So we are looking into those. You're
looking into that, yes. Yep. And we do a lot of that now on some of our bigger projects, like the holding ponds, swells that are in some of our shopping centers. So just like to have more of that integrated into the process, because then that could put less of a burden on our existing system.
Absolutely. And also a part of it is not necessarily involving development. We're looking at potential areas that the city could put some kind of storage device or something like that. Or
that would be like the bio swells and in our wetlands.
Yeah, just adding little features here and there that would help. That's part of what that'll help again more so than if we can detain some of the water and how quickly it flows. It's more cost effective than trying to upgrade an entire system, basically.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much. Great presentation. Thank you, Damien. Anything else from council? Any other questions before we move on?
I have one.
Okay.
I got a couple calls, Brian may have too, about Wellington Village the last couple days. There was a lot of mudslide is there, which severely damaged 4 or 5 of the homes out there. And I know you've been out there. Was there anything relative to, you were talking about trees and taking out trees or, other development in that area that could have caused the excessive mudslides they had in Wellington Village?
So I was speaking with Wendy this afternoon about that, and her department had actually done some investigation with Rowan County Erosion Control, and they had looked at the development that you may be speaking of. It's kind of across Statesville Boulevard from Lash Drive, and it was determined that that system actually held up extremely well during the rain. Those are also not developed for that kind of rain. You don't size erosion control for a project for a 100-year flood. You size it for a 2-year storm, actually. So because generally a development is going to happen within 2 years, so you don't even size it up for 10-year type storms. So the type of event that occurred and the fact that the erosion control that they had held up as well as it did is actually fairly impressive. Probably the majority of the mud that occurred at Wellington Hills was basically stream bank erosion along the creek bank of Jump and Run Branch. There's that type of, even a stream is not going to hold that kind of water back, and it basically eroded a large amount of the stream bank by just having that sheer amount of volume coming through it that quickly.
How far away is the development from Wellington Village? You said it was up on Statesville Boulevard?
Yeah, and there's actually a culvert between them, which would be on Woodleaf Road. And David, I honestly, I don't know the exact distance. I'd hate to give an estimate of how far it is. It's a couple of miles away.
Can you guys hear me? This is Wendy.
Yes, Wendy. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry about that. I'm joining by phone. I have an unstable internet connection. So Chris is correct in everything that he said. I did speak with Greg Green a little bit this afternoon as well, who's the erosion control specialist for the county. He did say prior to the rain event, that site had been in violation with its erosion control structure. And at that point, there had been some mud erosion that had gotten down into the stream bank, but they had fixed it actually prior to the rain event. So it did hold up really well during that event. However, there was already some sediment down in the creek that could have contributed to that bank sediment that was, washed down towards Wellington. But like Chris said, the pipe under Woodleaf actually does restrict a lot of flow and actually help the folks downstream from there. But we could not find anything upstream of Wellington Hills that would have contributed really to the flooding other than the intensity of the rain event. And again, there could have been some erosion from the site prior to the event, but that again was corrected and was handled during the actual rain event.
Wendy, while we have you on the phone, I also had a conversation with Caroline Barker, who lives in the Hidden Creek neighborhood, and she was concerned about the amount of flooding from the creek that is adjacent to the, I guess, southwest side of that development. So we probably need someone, maybe Chris and you, to go out there and take a look at, how far up it actually came into the yards this time. I don't think this event actually caused flooding inside of a home. but it is a concern. And what they've identified is probably some stream maintenance, and it could be a result of the event that you're talking about with this, going downstream, because that's further away. But if you all, I've got her number, I'll give it to you later.
Okay, yeah, if you can just send that to me, we'll take a look and see what's going on.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
David, to answer your question, it was, I just checked it out on Google real quick. It's 1.1 miles downstream, or basically upstream of that is what that calculated out to be.
Yeah, I'm looking at Google Earth right now. It looks to me like it's a long ways. So basically what happened is the sediment came down the jump and run branch, filled that up, and then went over the banks into Wellington. Sounds like what you said. Is that correct? I mean, I'm not a...
Somewhat, but yes, a lot of that sediment was from the erosion of the actual jump and run branch banks eroding.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Cameron, you had a question?
the velocity of the water and the amount of water at one time. Yeah. Okay. Well, any other questions from council? Thank you, David.
Yeah, I had a quick question. Chris, I know that in this past budget, we had approved some projects around stormwater, from my memory recall. And I don't expect you to give me a recap now, but can we kind of get a progress report on that, since we just had a terrible event that affected places we didn't expect. We're about to get hammered on Thursday again. And it's just September, and there's 7 more storms out there, and we all know they all come through here somehow. So at some point, can we just get a progress on what we plan, where we're at? And I know we're just a couple of months into the budget piece, but just an update so we can let people know that we are doing some things. That way we'll be able to tie this back into the needs for the study that Damien just presented to us as we keep going through these phases would be very helpful.
Yeah, and I can give you a quick update now, and I'll do you a more detailed, like you're asking for, but we're actually working on a project. We released it for construction last week, which is at Sunset Drive, and that project is one of the ones that was approved in the budget. It should be beginning within any time now. We're just waiting on a schedule from the contractor, but they have received a notice to proceed. They've actually done some tree clearing and some stakeout and some investigation work. So that project's underway and will be moving forward anytime now. Another item that some of the pictures that Damien showed were at McCoy Road, and that's actually our big one. That was the one that had a really big price tag on it. Now, we haven't got into the bidding phase yet. We actually worked with Graham to acquire the easement, and we pretty much got that accepted today for the most part. There's some signatures needed, and Graham will be recording that as soon as he gets it. We're proceeding forward with that engineer. You actually approved in the consent agenda for those engineering fees for that project, for the bidding and the construction admin on that project. So I don't have the schedule right in front of me, but I anticipate that project on McCoy Road should be beginning springtime after bidding, and they'll take some time to buy the materials and that kind of thing. So that one would be about springtime. And those are the 2 major projects that were approved in the budget.
Okay. Yeah. I remember I had a lot of questions about McCoy Road because I didn't understand it. It was a big price tag, and you guys did a great job in explaining that for me. I just want to know kind of where we're at. So thank you. It's timeliness on how the events we've just had, events that we're worried about this week. So as much as we can keep moving forward on things and letting people know that we are trying to do some things. So thank you all. Chris, Michael, Damien, for your research, for doing that, and Wendy, thank you all.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, then I'll say thank you to Chris Tester and also to Damien for an excellent presentation, a lot of information. And we'll move on to number 9. council to make appointments to the Rowan County Tourism Board. And I believe Kelly Baker has some information on that, and it is in your packet as well.
Yes, Mayor, the Tourism Authority has sent a request that Stephen Kidd, who is a city appointee, be reappointed for another 3-year term. And there's an open 3-year term that they are recommending Sada Stewart from the Historic Salisbury Foundation for her to serve that term.
And I am the liaison from council to that group, and I think those are wonderful in that group. What is interesting is that each seat is has to be from a particular area, and both of these individuals fit that criteria. So if I can hear
I'd be proud to nominate both of them.
Okay, thank you.
I'd be honored. I mean, they're both outstanding. They're both wonderful, terrific, competent people.
Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor. At this time, I will call the question. Tamara?
Aye.
Brian?
For the record, I think they're cool people too. Aye.
Thank you. And David, again?
Yes and yes.
Thank you so much. And Karen Alexander, yes and yes. Thank you very much. So that is wonderful additions to that board.
I hope every board gets that quality of people who want to serve.
Yes. Okay, so we will move on to number 10, City Attorney's Report.
I don't have anything for the council tonight, Madam Mayor.
Okay. And City Manager's Report. This morning at our pre-council meeting, City Manager Lane Bailey said that there was nothing to report today. So we'll move on to 12, Mayor's Announcements. A, the City of Salisbury continues to encourage all residents to complete the 2020 census, either online at 2020census.gov or by telephone at area code 844-330-2020, or by mail before the deadline of September 30th, 2020. Responding accurately to the census will provide millions of federal funds for needed programs in Rowan County, such as schools, hospitals, employment initiatives, drug rehabilitation, and roadway construction. An undercount would mean a loss for the state of North Carolina of over $74 billion over the next 10 years. An undercount could also result in overcrowding in our schools due to an inaccurate count of school-aged children, loss of necessary health programs, or delayed road rehabilitation projects. All responses are confidential by law. Please visit 2020census.gov for more information. B, applications for the 2020-2021 Historic Preservation Incentive Grants are now available. These matching grants are available on a competitive basis for exterior projects on owner-occupied houses in Salisbury's 4 residential local historic districts. That would be North Main Street, Brooklyn South Square, West Square, and Ellis Street graded school districts. Applications are due by September 25th, 2020. To receive an application or inquire about eligibility, please call 704-638-5212. At this time, we are up for 13, and that is council's comments. Does anyone from council have a comment? David?
Council up to date on something relative to the Idea Center and all that. As y'all know, our budgets for the last 2 years had 150 and then I think 75,000, or 125 and 75,000 for the Idea Center, which never got off the ground because of a number of reasons. But key one was that the backstop cost to us could have been, have 2 commas in it, over $1 million. And so we and the county commission both walked away from it. When Karen and I were at the Mayor's Innovation Conference last January, we met the mayor of Oakland, who introduced us to a concept called Kiva, which doesn't mean anything. It's spelled Kiva. And to make a real long story short, Pete Teague and I have been sort of chasing that cat down for a while, for the last 6 months. Coming to Salisbury very soon is Self-Help Credit Union, which is a nonprofit credit union serving minority businesses. One of the things that they do is they make loans at a minimum of $5,000, often to people that don't qualify for loans at other banking institutions. The problem is there's a market for a need for capital for companies, or for new companies, startups, particularly minority and women-owned businesses, for less than $5,000 to get off the ground and get started. And so what Kiva does, which is an international program, is it provides sort of a crowdfunding for that sort of a thing. But it's a little bit different in that it's sort of a 3-legged stool. One leg is a funder, somebody to provide the financing to get onto the Kiva platform, which is $25,000 a year. A second leg is called the hub, which is where the activity takes place. You have an employee that's roughly a 20-hour-a-week employee that's responsible for reaching out into the community and finding potential businesses and helping them go through the process, with the understanding that they tend to have lower credit scores and no experience borrowing. And the third piece of that puzzle is a trustee that sort of puts the rubber stamp on the application before it goes onto the Kiva platform. The trustee and the hub also provide technical assistance, meaning more than just money to a business, to make sure that they have a business plan put together and that they have all the moving parts and proper legal and accounting and marketing strategy and operations capability and those sorts of things that you need to run a business. Well, Kiva has 2 trainings a year. One training session is typically in October, but it's been moved to November. The sign-up date is October 9th, which is way too quick for the city of Salisbury to move. And the next sign-up date is next spring in March or April. So one of the models is there are a lot of different models where cities play very different roles in this to help minority and women-owned businesses get started. I think I talked a little bit to Karen about this because she was there, and to Lane Bailey about it. And, it's not that much money that we can't find that in the budget. We didn't put it in the budget because we didn't know what the acceleration rate would be right now. But I've talked to Rocky Cabagnat. I've talked to a bunch of people about this, and pretty much everybody's all in, I might say. So we've got a nonprofit that's ready to roll, we believe, to be the recipient of funds. I think the first year we're going to use private money. I've talked to Robertson Foundation. I've put some feelers out to other foundations that are willing to put the money up. I've met with some private individuals, the usual suspects, so to speak, who offered to get this $25,000 together. And Self-Help is willing, we think, to serve as the hub. We're actually meeting with them tomorrow morning. Pete Teague and I are meeting with them tomorrow morning. We've had half a dozen meetings in the last month and a half with various people involved in it. So I think this is going to get off the ground, which is a great step to use one of Karen's words, one of the mayor's words. This is really exciting, when Jamel Black ran for city council, one of his points in his literature and that he talked about was that there are 40 or 50 minority businesses that need help. Not only money, but they also need the expertise that goes with getting them off the ground. And so I think this is going to really happen within the next 2 or 3 weeks. And so it'll be a city related thing. We think the city will be there as a funder. I talked to, like I said, to the mayor about this and to other people, and we decided that it's really not the right thing for the city to create another board or commission or whatever to manage the process. And so that's why this nonprofit's being created, for that purpose. And so we may come to the city, hopefully. These things are usually, the funding, the $25,000 a year is usually financed by the city foundations, often like the Walton Foundation in Arkansas and Mississippi provide matching funds. So that, if the crowdfunding can provide $5,000 or $10,000, up to $5,000, then the Walton Foundation will match it with another $5,000. So we're thinking that we want to find some foundations to do that. The Robertson Foundation has expressed a strong interest in this. So, this is really exciting. I mean, because we've been talking about minority business development and assistance. And so we're getting the pieces in place. And I think it's really going to happen. I've mentioned it a few times, but I haven't given even that sketchy of a detail about it. So Karen was real bullish on this, I might add, when we were at the innovation conference last January. And she's the one that turned to me and said, "We got to do this." I said, "Okay, let's do it." And so that's kind of how it started.
Well, thank you, David. It's very exciting. I think that whenever I talked to the self-help credit union president earlier this year after coming back, and David had already done a lot of work in terms of the self-help credit union, which I didn't know about at the time, but that already has a relationship with Livingstone College. So we just have all the pieces there that it seems that they're all coming together. So I'm excited. I have told David that I think if he can, attend this training, even though the city, we don't have it in the budget now, but if we can be planning for it in our next budget cycle, once all the parts and pieces are put together, I think it could be really great for our minority business owners and women-owned businesses. Because
the training's free, just to be clear. There's no cost to me attending this. Self-help will have somebody there, and Pete Teague from Livingstone may also participate.
So thank you for that update. Sure. And I think we just moving forward. Okay, any other council member have anything? Anybody? Okay. Mayor Pro Tem at our meeting this morning, she did not have any comments. So we're already down to mayor's comments at 15. And I have one just that I received this afternoon late, an email from CDBG funds from HUD. We have been lucky enough to get another a little over 200,000 to add to the 173,000 that we got earlier this spring. So we'll be putting that money through the process, and council will be working together to determine who the recipients of that is. And I'm sure we'll be partnering with the same team that helped us identify and then put it out for RFPs to our nonprofits. So that's exciting news for our community. And it is in relationship to COVID-19, but a little bit more expansive. So we'll have all the details, and I'll share that with you all as we get more detail. But I just got the letter saying that we were chosen, and our community did get that.
Cool.
So that's really great. And with that, we're at number 16. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved. All those in favor. So that would be David.
Aye.
Brian.
Yes and yes. Aye.
Tamara.
Aye.
And Karen, aye. So thank everyone for joining this evening and all of the great presentations we got from staff. So we're moving forward. Thank you.
Have a
Thanks,
great night, everybody.